right, welcome back to Between Two Screens. I'm so happy to have Meryanne Loum-Martin on the show with us today. Meryanne, welcome to you.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me.
It's really my honor to have you. I will just mention by way of introduction that Meryanne is the owner and developer and designer of a boutique hotel called Jnane Tamsna in the beautiful city of Marrakesh in Morocco. And we're looking forward to hearing a few details of how that project came to be. What I'd love to do to get started is find out a little bit more about you personally, where you grew up, and ultimately, how did you come into the world of hospitality and to build a 24-room boutique hotel in Marrakesh?
I'm French. I'm from Paris with West Indian and West African origins, from Senegal. And my passion has always been architecture since I was a child. And I went to architecture school quite young because I finished high school at 16 instead of 18. And unfortunately in France, you need to take math credits to get into third year. So I was extremely frustrated because everything was going very well, but I could not get into third year because of the math and the physics. So I stopped and I went to law school and became a lawyer like everybody in my family. I am fourth generation on my mother's side and second on my father's side. And the passion for architecture was always there. And I always traveled with a very keen interest in architecture wherever I would go. Paris was home, but I had traveled a lot on my own, and I was also interested in my own cultural heritage. So when you're a mix of so many things, you're at the same time open to a lot of things. And I think it was in the mid-80s, my parents, who were living in Paris, started talking about having a holiday house somewhere which would be no more than 3 hours flight from Paris. And every Sunday lunch, it was about one day we'll have a holiday house. And after a while, I said, look, you know my passion for architecture. If you're serious about this project, I want to be in charge. And Marrakesh seems to be a fascinating country because it was neutral. You know, it wasn't daddy's countries, it wasn't maman's country. Both were a bit far from Paris. There was no obligation to visit half the family anywhere before you know, from the moment you landed, we could be free. And I had a friend here who was extremely connected. And I told my parents, well, Marrakesh is probably the place you're looking for because it has people who could have all the choice in the world. We are in the 80s, who have chosen to have a house there. So it's probably a special place. And they said, okay, you can go and check. And so I came December 85 to look for land. And I immediately fell in love with the place. From the moment I stepped foot on the tarmac, and the airport was smaller. I mean, a tenth of my hotel now. And now it's a huge place. The airport was very tiny. And the sky was dark blue, and you could see the Atlas Mountain with snow on top of it. And I thought, this is the place for me. I immediately fell in love with Marrakesh. So we're December 85, found a piece of land to buy, not where I am now, another place which is about 15 minutes from here. And then I came back with my parents, and they also loved it. And I started doing a house for them. And while I was doing the house, I understood, so we are in 86 like this, I understood that there was an incredible untapped niche market that no one was getting. And I could feel it because of my interest for architecture and for cultural heritage. And I could feel that, you know, Marrakesh had this incredible aura and legend because Saint Laurent was here and a few other famous people were here. And then you would arrive and you had no way to connect to the legend because you had kind of boring big hotels apart from Mamounia, which was always beautiful, but it's not everybody who had the means to go there, you had quite boring places. It was the beginning where, you know, hotels where the boutique concept was appearing in Asia. And I had traveled in India the year before. I thought as I was building the house, I would come every month, and all my friends, I had worked in New York before. I had a lot of friends, you know, New York, London, Paris. And my friends would just sign up. They would say, okay, we'll be on your trip in June, we'll be on your trip in April. So I would always come with some friends. During the day, I was on the construction site, and in the evening, I was with my friends. And all my friends were very well traveled. And they always said, how come such a fascinating place only has boring accommodation? So I kept on hearing this all the time. And I thought, maybe there's a niche market and we could do something about it. So one day when I did my little marketing study, and one day I went back to Paris and I told my father, look, why don't you buy the land next door and we create a project which will be giving to people a very, like a villa rental with a hotel experience and at a totally private and sophisticated level. Because, you know, villas to rent would not have staff or would not be stylish, and hotels would be too big. So the idea was to do something in between. And he said, well, why not? Because if it doesn't work, we can always sell a house and keep the other one for us as it was planned. So off I went, and I threw a huge and quite incredible housewarming party in '89. After that, the telephone never stopped ringing, because all of my friends who were invited, so people came from LA, New York, London, Geneva, Vienna, Munich, Paris. And all of my friends had direct access to their boss. And they all went to their boss and said, we know that you need to entertain guests, and instead of taking them to hotels, we're just coming back from this amazing place that you can rent to host your clients. And then it went viral did not exist then because we are in January 90, but it went beyond viral and it never stopped. And my mother would call me exasperated, saying, when can I go on holidays in my own house? And I would tell her, well, maybe in 6 months you have 2 days. It was crazy. So that's how it started. And I would never thought that I would get into hospitality. So I started through this kind of very special villa thing, which won the Harper's and Queen Award of the best villa in the world. And to tell you how busy it was, Tom Cruise tried 4 times before we could find space for him, because Brad Pitt had told him it was the place to go. So you could rent one house or the other or both. Each house had its pool and staff, and they were just sharing a tennis court. So that's how it happened. So we opened in 89, 90, and then in 95, we had horrendous strikes. So we're still living in Paris. I'm married, I have 2 little ones. And this Marrakesh business is becoming so unexpectedly successful that I quit the bar and I dedicate myself to sales and marketing for Marrakesh. And then we had horrendous strikes in Paris in 95. And my husband was traveling for his work and he didn't need to be especially in Paris. So the strikes paralyzed Paris for like 2.5 months, and we said, okay, we've had it. We decided to leave and to try to be in Morocco for a permanent time. And we tried in summer 96, and we are now in summer 2020, and we never left. While I was here, I did another project. I was blessed with my first project because we had incredible guests and incredible press. And then I did another place in the Medina, which is the old part of town, which was like a very elegant concept store where people could also have food. I had the first cover of Departures magazine, the front cover, and it was saying the essence of chic in Marrakesh, and it was all about my things. And then after a while, we decided to do our own project, because before it was, I didn't own, I was running it and creating it, but I didn't own it. And we bought this land where we are now, and we built our hotel. So here is the story. But I mean, I would never have thought that I would end up in hospitality, because I didn't go to hotel school, and it's not something I, you know, but here I am, and I'm going to do a new project, which is going to be even bigger, and I love it.
Fantastic. How has the recent events, the lockdown or quarantine, affected the hotel? And how has it affected, I guess, your day-to-day? And I would love to hear maybe a challenge and also perhaps a silver lining that you found in it.
Well, the big challenge is how do you pay all the staff when you have no guests? So for 3 months, there was some help from the government. It's finishing now. Of course, I see the impact on my little world, but I see things on a more broad scale. I think that we have gone through a kind of cultural tsunami, because there has been the issues with the health, which got people to probably think about changing their habits about consumption. And then we had the Black Lives Matter, which is also awakening so many people who were not concerned about the subject, but realizing that, wow, things have to change, you know? So between the two, I think it has been a very strong awakening for people. So for the hotel business, the good thing is that if the trends, but I don't know yet, if the trends turn into reality, people say that because people have taken the habit to work from home or from wherever, they are going to stay longer when they travel, because it doesn't prevent them from working. So we have organized beautiful home office in the garden. We are on 9 acres, and you can see if there's no issue with the Wi-Fi, it works. So in various places, we have organized home offices. So if our guests come and just feel like, why should I go back to London or to wherever? Because I can work from here, they can.
I hope that's the case as well. So you mentioned the Black Lives Matter movement, and we've seen it really sweep across the globe and spark a really important conversation on race relations. Can you share any experiences that you've had, particularly to being a female and Black hotel owner in the hospitality industry in North Africa first? And I have a follow-up question after, but I'm curious, and I know our audience is also curious, what your experience has been, I guess, until this point.
Well, I will, you know, first of all, I'm in a very different position. When I was a lawyer in Paris, people were telling me, you are crazy. You're moving, you're spending all this time in a country you don't speak the language, in a macho culture. People can be racist and you're African. And on top, you don't know anything about this business. So everybody, and it was going very well. My legal career was going, so everybody thought I was nuts. And I said, well, you know, why not? And it went fine. And the thing is that I remember the people, because I started creating jobs in an area where there was no jobs. And I heard several people saying, people say that if there were more of these Senegalese women, unemployment would be solved in Morocco, you know, and they're talking about me. So in fact, I never had, I would say, a bad experience, but it's probably because I'm quite assertive and aggressive, and I don't take no for an answer. And I remember when we were building this hotel, which we built in the crazy record time of 11 months and 3 weeks out of nothing. nothing. There was nothing here apart from a few palm trees. And I had to build in this time because I had accepted a full house before starting digging. And so I remember that my husband, he's American, and he would tell me, I'm not even coming on the construction site because it's intolerable the way you speak to people. And I would tell him, look, I believe that I have to shout louder to get things done. And it's very easy for you with your soft voice and your blue eyes and being a man to get people to do what you have asked. But for me, being a Black woman, if I don't just scream all the time and things are not done, I say, oh, okay, I won't pay you. Things don't get, don't move. And honestly, we started digging on January 6th and we were full on December 27th of the same year. And it was crazy. But I did it. And I think it's because I'm never in a position where I'm shy or, oh, maybe I should not. In the construction business, you can't do that. So to come back to the Black Lives Matter, I am totally thrilled that the conversation is on the table because it is about time. And it's not about time, it could have been before. I'm coming from very different Blackness, I would say. My West Indian family has nothing, Catholic, has nothing to do with my Senegalese family, Muslim. I have a lot of friends who are African American. I have a lot of friends who are African English speaking, and they're different from the French speaking. And so, it has always been a big diversity in our family. And on both sides, because you see, even on the Caucasian side, I think it's the ultimate diversity because my mother-in-law, they were second boat after Mayflower. And she married someone of Irish descent. And she was Protestant and he was Catholic. And I remember she was so funny. She told me when I met her, she said, well, I had joined this thing called Daughters of the American Revolution. I really didn't like it so much, but at some point I joined it. And then I married an Irish Catholic. And until the morning of my wedding, my father was so furious that I didn't know if he would come to church. And now look at the family. It looks like an advertisement for Benetton. In one generation, you see. So on both sides, we're coming from, my mother chose someone who is not at all who she was expected to choose. My mother-in-law, the same thing. So we are coming from a very open mind background, I would say, where people go for what they feel and no one is bothered about any kind of prejudice. So, so I'm very involved in this Black Lives Matter. I'm very involved in something called the Mandela Mile to Kofi. On July 18th, there's going to be a virtual walk for Nelson Mandela and Kofi Annan. Mm-hmm. And I had the immense honor to be asked to lead the walk for culture. And I chose to give it a theme, which is culture, identity, and freedom. And I also hosted and founded something called Agriculture at my hotel. I had the idea 5 years ago, and it was a cultural pop-up, and now it's going to move into a yearly rendezvous. It's about celebrating the creativity of the African diaspora in literature and cinema and entrepreneurship, but having a very diverse audience. And I had the idea to do this a long time ago. And now with the Black Lives Matter, I'm very interested in organizing events where there's parity in the audience, because I believe that it's wonderful that laws are going to change and there's going to be more diversity in boardrooms. There's going to be more opportunities. But if there's no biracial socialization, I don't think it will move as fast as it could. And there's something which really struck me the last time I was in New York. I see everybody. My friends are from everywhere, and forever at my house, you could meet everybody. So last time I was in New York, a year ago, I was already knowing that I would do this event about agriculture. It's Afri like, it sounds like Africa, but it's free like freedom. And at lunchtime, I noticed that in restaurants, like in places, so we're in Manhattan, in places that say where there's a lot of law firms, like Park Avenue, Lexington. And what was really interesting is that in the restaurants, the tables were often mixed because people work together. And you have African Americans who have gone to the best Ivy League schools and who are in law firms and in banks. But at dinner time, the tables were not mixed anymore. And it really struck me because it means that for dinner, you see the people who are part of your first circle of friends. And at lunch, you see your colleagues, but you don't hang out with your colleagues in your free time. And I would love that my events in Marrakesh evolve towards a big parity of audience, having the best African-American doctors mixing with the best Caucasian doctors and lawyers, but that we are all here to celebrate the creativity of the African diaspora. Because we have the most extraordinary storytellers. We have the most extraordinary stories to tell. But I think it's sad that there's so many allies, but they just don't have the opportunities to be with us. I don't know if it's a crazy idea, but I don't think it's a crazy idea when I see there's a very interesting initiative called From Privilege to Progress. I don't know if you know of it, but 2 years ago, there was a racist incident in a Starbucks in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
There were two African Americans sitting at a table. They had not ordered coffee yet. And the manager, who was a bit aggressive and quite racist, called 911. And the police arrived, had handcuffed them. And the audience was really shocked. And there was this African American woman of Ghanaian descent who took a video. And she befriended her Caucasian neighbor at the table who was as shocked as her. The African American goes on Twitter, posted. She has a few views. The woman she just met reposted, and they reached 13 million views. And this is just showing that when white allies join us for the claim of justice, then it is, there's another echo, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll certainly share some more information with our audience about your initiatives.
Yes.
It's really nice to hear that you're not only a businesswoman, but you're also involved in social causes. I think that's really inspiring for other entrepreneurs.
Well, it runs in my blood, my great-grandfather was born from an enslaved man in West Indies. And in one generation, not only he became a lawyer, but he was sitting in the French Congress, writing the laws of France, and he was elected. And I became a very good friend of W.E.B. Du Bois, mm-hmm. and he defied President Woodrow Wilson all along from the moment Wilson sent American troops. He was putting pressure on the French government to have segregated soldiers back because he didn't want African-American soldiers to enjoy France and then go back to the US where it was segregation. And we have all of my ancestors' speeches in Congress and where he was saying this is not happening in France, and it never happened, So, and I have a lot of people on my maternal side who have been very strong in politics and standing for our rights. So, it's just normal that I continue at my little scale.
And add to all that, you recently published a book, right, in
Ah,
collaboration with Rizzoli. Can you tell us about that?
can I show you the front cover? I don't know if you see it.
Oh, yes, that is.
Yeah. So, because as you said, I've been here for a long time, and Marrakesh has given me so much happiness and so much pleasure. A friend of mine who heads a fantastic bookstore in Paris called Galignani, and I've known her since I had my first houses. She always told me, "What are you waiting to write a book?" And I said, "Oh, I don't know anything about this world." Da, da, da. And suddenly, it happened. I pitched with Zoli. I have a fantastic photographer I've been knowing for many, many years. He's French, living in London. And the approach of the book is different from the other coffee table books on architecture and design, because, you know, most of the time it is people doing 1 year book on Greece, 1 year book on Tuscany, another year book of Mexico, but it's never an insider's book, or not as often, I would say. And here it is my personal journey through beautiful private homes, most of them, and some gardens, most of them totally unknown to the public. It is a tribute to Marrakesh by the foreigners, I would say, because what is extraordinary about this country is that even though there's a very strong style, because Marrakesh in particular is at the crossroads of so many culture, each of us can bring its own, we can bring our own identity into our home and still create something which has very strong sense of place, you see? So there's British homes and Belgian homes and Italian homes, and you can feel, you know, Italian, Belgian, and English, they have nothing really in common. So you can feel that it's different. At the same time, you totally feel that you're more. My book is coming out mid-October, and I just adored doing it. And I hope it's not going to be the last one. Who knows?
Thank you. And as far as upcoming projects, you mentioned you do have another hotel in the works.
So the other hotel, I have a project partner who is the most extraordinary architect. I'm so happy. So this has been a struggle of my life, because the land was bought in 2006 when I had the vision that I wanted to do the ultimate sustainable project, which would be sustainable not only in the construction, but also on the human resources side. Because when you are in a country like here, where you have such a powerful traditional knowledge on crafts, on land maintenance, I thought it was a bit sad that hotels would always ignore that, and that resorts would go for something which would go by corporate standards, you see? So because I always come with my very kind of boutique human approach, I wanted to create a deluxe hotel, but an agriculture farmland, and where traditional methods of agriculture would create the edible landscape. So you're not wasting earth, you're not wasting land, you grow your own food, and you have a 5-star extraordinary hotel, which is built in earth. So we have the structure, which is metal and a little bit of cement, and it's entirely filled in earth. So in terms of sustainability and green technology, it is as far as you can go, because we have tested the earth, and we are using the earth below our feet to build the place, you know? So there's going to be villas to sell and a gorgeous hotel.
That's excellent. Well, we'll definitely follow progress as we can, and we'll look out for that October launch date of
the book. Yes.
And July 18th, we'll be looking out for the virtual walk.
Yes, I will send you the information, because there's a fantastic app which has been created about that.
Fantastic. Great. And until then, thank you so much for joining us. It's so inspiring to hear your story.
Thank
You
you,
still
Ari.
have so much energy, and even expanding your capabilities and your causes and helping others is really inspiring to me, and I'm sure to others. So thank you again for joining.
It's
And
been my honor to be invited to join you.
of course, and wishing you and your family only health and good things.